Wow, that's incredible. Now, when you said epigenetics, what kind of testing are you including in that?
Well, the big test, I mean, obviously there's, telomere testing has kind of been the first test that was out there. But, it's interesting that there's not good correlations on telomere testing and how that relates to either aging or disease processes in many cases. There's some select cases where that's true, and I'll go through that. But then there's leukocyte telomere testing, which I think is the next advance in telomere testing and certainly shows even more accuracy in what's going on. So we'll talk about kind of the evolution of telomere testing for one. And then we're going to go on Dr. Horvath's work and the work at True Diagnostics and what they're doing with DNA methylation and how that correlates to an accuracy to your biological age. And understand that DNA methylation is more than if you're methylating your B, using methylated B vitamins or you're methylating to make neurotransmitters. We're talking about methylation on DNA and the measurement of hundreds of strands of the cytosine guanosine, triggers that will show us, well, where are you at? And so that's one piece of it. And then understanding what are all the components that shift that then? So yeah, we're all dealt a deck of cards, right? I mean, our genes. Now, some people would say, oh, well, genes don't matter that much. They do. If you get a bad hand, it's harder for you to get a royal flush than if you get a good hand, right? True. So, I mean, the reality is you just got to work harder in order to kind of, allow for your genetic expression, not to bloom in the case of, negative genes. So the point is that, well, what are the big factors? So we'll go through things like time restricted eating, alcohol intake, those kind of things. But more importantly, we'll get into metaflammation and as a sign of metabolic disruption that you can measure actively in the person from things like changes in iron status. So iron to ferritin storage, insulin resistance, mitochondrial disruption, losses in neuroplasticity, dyslipidemias, all of these things that we can readily measure actually start to paint a mosaic of where we're at in our aging process. And I think that's what we really need to start to look at is looking at individuals and saying, A, where are they broke? Where's their clustering, issues at from a cell biology standpoint? But more importantly, what do their labs show? And guess what? We need to attack those areas that are broke, attack them. And that might mean laying down lifestyle and suggestions for people that you're going to have to coach them up to get them to make those changes if they're really interested in anti-aging. Right. Anti-aging just doesn't mean you look pretty on the outside, right? You can do that with aesthetics alone. But we all know that, pretty on the inside means pretty on the outside too, right? You got to get both.
Indeed, indeed. And what I love about it is that it's measurable. My question is, are you able to determine an actual age, or do you have an algorithm in place where they have, let's say, oh, this is my age according to these markers?
True age, or True Diagnostics, actually, that's the Horvath methodology, actually, which is highly acclaimed, Nobel Prize nominee, UCLA, researcher. You actually get assigned a biological age. It's pretty accurate, actually.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm excited to do that. I think we all should.
You know what? I'll tell you what, I'll share my own personal story. And I know we're only kind of doing a little bit of a prelude here, but please. I did my gene test. I just recently did a gene test with a new gene company just to kind of see like what's their lab, what's it look like when they give me the report. Really happy with that report too. It was awesome. Good. But if you looked at my genes, you would go, this guy's going to be obese. He's going to be diabetic. He's going to be hypertensive. He doesn't detox well, right? So if you looked at my gene set, I basically, even the head researcher that was kind of, going through it with me because they wanted to show me what they were doing. They're like, wow, you got a lot of stuff going on here from the gene side that isn't so good. And, if you looked through my family, most of my family members were obese, even morbidly obese. And I have those genes. But when I did the True Diagnostics test, I actually showed up younger than my chronologic age, which when I was talking to the researcher there, he said, in America, men at age 60, very few test earlier than their chronologic age. It's very rare. And actually, you told me you're aging in the 95th to the 98th percentile of your group because of the way you're managing your chemistry. And so it kind of made me feel good about the metabolic code. It made me feel good about, you know, all the years dedicated to understanding systems biology and trying to think of your body as a whole body metabolism. How are we getting everything to work together? Because what happens is a lot of times people don't pay attention to that one weak organ. And guess what? The whole body ages with your weakest organ, you know? So,
that's a good
so you
point.
kind of want to think about it that way, that when you have that, and that's, you know, that's Navio's work out of San Diego. So, you know, it's that thought of how do we turn off cell danger response signaling? How do we retard metainflammation and optimize our epigenetic signaling?
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so excited to hear about that. That's great. You guys are headed towards the future. This is the future of medicine.
Well, you know, we've tried to stay ahead. You know, we've tried to stay ahead of the game a little bit, you know, since I started this work 35 years ago. So I'm hoping we're still landing at that true point in another 10 years.
Wow, this is great. Well, thank you for all your hard work and compiling all that data for us. I know in, you know, 5 or 10 years, we're going to look back and say, you know, thank God he did this, because now we know, and we can, like you said, just because your genes are bad and you dealt a bad hand doesn't mean that it's the end.